the Pentagon is in absolute chaos. And the president's press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, faux pas or not, said that the Pentagon, as a collective institution, is at war with the defense secretary.
Yes. Just a quick word, Sarah, on another thing. These crises going on in Washington and around the world, and we're looking now at the Pentagon. It's not a great time to have the Pentagon falling apart. You know, the pinnacle of the US military, which is the pinnacle of the Western security apparatus, because falling apart is what's happening there, Sarah, isn't it?
Yeah, total meltdown, one outgoing senior member of staff said. So, I mean, they seem to be forming a circular firing squad now. More and more revelations are coming out about peak head success management style, which seems to be woefully lacking. He has no experience of running any kind of large organization like this. People have been cuttingly saying that, you know, he looks good on TV, but he never rose above the rank of major, and no disrespect to majors. He was in the armed forces, but he wasn't considered a fantastic leader of men. And you know, the Pentagon is in absolute chaos. And the president's press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, faux pas or not, said that the Pentagon, as a collective institution, is at war with the defense secretary.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
that is pretty astounding. One thing we're discovering is that the members of Trump's administration seem like the gang that can't shoot straight. I mean, so many things are falling apart so quickly on so many fronts. It's astonishing. And that's reflected in a plunge in approval ratings for Donald Trump in the polls.
But are we, Sarah, looking, when we look at the Pentagon, at the Trump political class waging war on the ancient venerable ranks of the Pentagon, or is it the sort of uniforms in the Pentagon waging war on their elected masters?
Well, it's everything all at once there, John, because actually the people who've been fired are actually consider themselves part of the MAGA universe, or
Yes.
MAGA. And and although it's easy enough to say, oh, it's the swamp trying to get at Hegseth, that doesn't seem to be the case. They seem to be at each other like ferrets in a sack over there. And there's a lot, you know, and of course we heard recently that Elon Musk and Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, were in a slanging match that everybody heard in the corridors of the White House.
It's compared to a World Wrestling Federation confrontation.
But isn't there something a bit... There's something strange, isn't there, that, you know, when you're in America, I was in Nashville only a few weeks ago, and there was a moment at the end of the Grand Ole Opry where they asked anyone that had served to stand, and for, you know, there was huge applause from the crowd. There is something about anyone associated with defence that there's almost like they're untouchable, they're the good guys. There's something generally in the way that Americans talk about their armed forces, but also I think the Pentagon probably by association gets a bit of that it's the idea that these could be bad people who are attacking the good guy who's in charge just feels like that's something that isn't going to be easily bought by the American public.
Yeah, well, you are absolutely right about the view of American troops as heroes. That's definitely the case. But there's still an us and them. There's the troops, the G.I. Joes, the grunts who'd go and do all the dirty work for the government, and then the fat cats sitting in Washington in the bureaucrats. And there's that, and the Pentagon, which is, you know, just look at it from the air. It's absolutely massive. It's stuff.
And if you go around Washington, you see uniforms absolutely everywhere, totally different. You've just spotted a story which bears mentioning, maybe not the most serious thing in the world, but it may turn out to be blown into something more serious than you might suppose. Just tell us a bit about what you've seen.
Well, I've just seen a story that's appeared on the Telegraph's website, which is just an interesting sort of, when Sarah was also sort of backing up one of the points we were making about this very delicate balance that's going on. The Pope's funeral could actually be quite interesting this weekend, because there is a chance that Donald Trump might be put in the third tier seats, because there is a protocol around who sits where because of sort of Catholic European families, royal family, etc. And although the Vatican hasn't released the details yet, there's been a sort of study of what happened at John Paul II's funeral, but also, interestingly, at Queen Elizabeth II's funeral, apparently Biden was put in sort of row 14, which Donald Trump posted very quickly after and said, this is what's happened to America in just 2 short years, no respect. A good time for our president to get to know leaders of third world countries was what he said at the time. And he said, if I were president, they wouldn't have sat me back there and our country would have been in a much different place than it is right now. In real estate, like in politics and in life, location is everything. Now, this is something he has no control over. And actually, you know, the Vatican are out of a lot of what's going on. They have their own rules, their own protocols, etc. And there is just a very interesting curveball that could be thrown in, because there'd be serious egg on Trump's face if he is put in row 14 or beyond. Yeah. But also there is a precedent that's been set, because there are people involved with the Vatican, there are people in Italy, there are prominent Catholics, there are royal families that are given a more prominent position, which Trump will not like and will be completely out of his control. So I just thought it was interesting. He was one of the first people to say that he was going to attend the funeral, but without a guarantee of where he's sitting. And as he said himself, location is everything.
Oh, it's well spotted, this. I know it's a different order of things to matters of war and peace and the tragedy of Ukraine, but you can see why it does sort of catch your eye. Sarah, I don't know, it's what will President Trump be thinking back there in row whatever it is at the Pope's funeral?
What a delicious story that Joe spotted. And it is going to be fun to watch. I wouldn't put it past Trump to just barge in and sit wherever. There was a famous protocol in his first term where, he considered himself, a bit behind the scenes, and he just elbowed his way to the front and centre of the picture. It was either at a NATO gathering or G7 summit or something like that.
That's right. I was there at that summit. I mean, I've just got a picture in my mind now, imagining President Trump sort of barging his way through a battalion of scarlet cloaks.
Maybe you'll take one so that he can sit in the front row. Put one on.
Red tie. I don't know if you wear a red tie, but sitting there among the cardinal archbishops of the world, looking rather more pleased than he did in row 29.
For me, there's a really strange kind of, how these big family occasions are sort of very stressful for people, whether it's weddings or funerals and sort of what's going to happen. And you think this is on such a monumental scale that Trump has actually set it up that where he sits is a big deal because of the position he took on our Queen's funeral about where Biden was sat. So there is a sort I don't know who's going to be reading this newspaper article in terms of from the Vatican's planning team. Yes. But it just is an interesting sort of schism in all this big diplomatic effort. But actually the Vatican could cause some significant problems by embarrassing
this
Trump
sort of protocol
inadvertently.
It's set in.
It's totally
set in marble, isn't it?
Well, I mean,
chiseled in letters.
How this stuff happens is it's centuries old how they conduct these events. So it's a big deal, but just struck me as being something that perhaps we've not thought about how Trump might respond.
No, it's got to be damaging.
Yes, Sarah.
Yeah, no, I do think though that the funeral, which is going to be a sort of global telethon, so to speak, watched by zillions around the globe. Trump, all eyes are going to be on Trump, whatever happens. He is centre stage at this thing. He always is. He will make sure somehow that he is. And all the world leaders going there are hoping to bend his ear all over again about this trade stuff. So he's going to make his presence felt one way or the other.
It's going to be an incredibly political funeral, isn't
Absolutely.
it? I mean, it's almost like a sort of G20 plus, a G98 summit in Rome, and they're all going to be doing it. They're all going to be doing sort of side meetings in the fringes of the obviously very solemn ceremony. But when you put that many leaders in one place, they do what they do.
And imagine being, the Italian Prime Minister who had gone out and done such a good job, sat through that White House Oval Office spectacle, conducted herself incredibly well, but actually she could have the rug completely pulled from underneath her inadvertently by centuries-old protocol that she's got no control over. Like, it's a really interesting. They say never mix politics and religion. Well, we have actually got that, really in our face at the weekend, completely out of a lot of people's control.
Yeah, I don't know how he managed to have a laugh contemplating the Pope's funeral at a time of global crisis, but we did somehow manage to do that. So you deserve some sort of badge for that, Joe.